Right, so what are we coming here to talk about? It's a nice sort of spring day.
Well, we've sort of been discussing recently, haven't we, that, I don't know what we've been discussing.
Short duration wedding photography.
I think this is on the back of a lot of new inquiries we've had recently,
Yeah.
Where there is definitely a demand for a different kind of wedding photography. By that, I don't mean a different style. I'm talking about a different requirement for a different time. But traditionally, you hire a photographer the day of your wedding, don't you?
Yeah.
All day.
All day, yeah.
You go on the internet and you look for your wedding photographer, you find them, you contact them, you meet them, they have a fee for all day, and that's traditionally what you invest in, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we kind of feel there's been a little bit of a different sort of an underlying change.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a shift.
A shift in the requirement that couples want from a photographer for their wedding.
Yeah.
Now, we went through COVID, didn't we? And that situation, and we got to a stage where we were allowed to have smaller weddings, micro weddings they were termed, weren't they? And it kind of meant people could only invite a handful to their wedding, so they had to decide who was the most important people to them at that stage.
Yeah.
You could get away with getting a photographer to come along at a certain stage, couldn't you? But they generally didn't stay very long because the timescale was so short. But on the back of that, it kind of seems to have allowed people to think a bit differently about getting married.
Yeah.
And in that, how they have their wedding photographed.
Definitely. There's definitely been a shift towards shorter duration photography, even if it's for a full day.
I think that's the point, isn't it? That not necessarily weddings have changed. Now we're all back to normal, in inverted commas. But there is still that realisation that actually, do I really need an all-day wedding photographer?
Yeah. And even if they're not asking themselves that question, I think that question needs to be answered because people are trying to save money.
Exactly, and that's where we are at this point of time now, isn't it? The cost of living crisis, and everybody knows they need to save a little bunnet. Save a bunnet where you can. a pink fluffy bunnet.
You're thinking of Easter, aren't you?
Oh, chalky eggs. Ooh. But where were we before Bunnet came along and disrupted me? People still want to get married all day.
Get married all day. Yeah, they still want an all-day wedding. They have to get married all day long.
They do, though, don't they?
Yeah.
All day they want to get married. So they're planning their weddings, and where we are in time at the moment, it is quite difficult to, Brandon,
I know,
to plan certain things without getting into the trap of budget and how much are we going to spend.
Yeah.
Now, when you're planning a wedding, it's always been a case of I've got a budget. Where can I save in my budget?
Yeah.
And photography has always been the one that you've been advised, in inverted commas, that you can save on, and various reasons why. Some I agree with, others I totally disagree with. But in planning weddings these days, I think people have kind of realised, and this is only on the back of a few inquiries we've had, where they know that so-and-so had a small intimate wedding a few years ago, and they had a photographer 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And what they did was amazing because they got everything, because all that wedding was the important bit, the ceremony, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they had that covered in professional wedding photographs, and they've got that to remember their day by, haven't they?
Yeah.
Couples that have inquired with us, they have kind of asked, can you do a wedding, can you do photography coverage for our wedding just for this section a day? It's a fair question, isn't it?
It is a fair
it's a fair question.
It's a really fair
and it got us thinking, well, actually, in this time where, and this is across the board, it's being deemed that weddings are a little bit quiet at the moment. The bookings are down for not just photographers, but for a lot of suppliers.
Yeah, generally.
Are there less weddings taking place, or are less people wanting a wedding photographer of a professional nature and a professional stature?
Yeah.
Are they now deciding, well, I only want them to do this bit, so I'll get Uncle Bob, I'll get the student, whoever, to do that for us.
Yeah, someone's starting out new.
Without actually saying to themselves, if I contact a professional, let me see if they're readily available to do my ceremony on my Saturday August wedding?
Seems to be the answer. No. No. What was I going to say then?
It's raining. The inquiries we've been getting recently, or a few that we've had, the question has been, can you just do a few hours on our wedding day? Now that's got us thinking now, is this the time when there has been a change in the perception of getting married and what you need? Because if you are getting married and you're having an all-day wedding, it's brilliant. It's your whole day wedding, isn't it? We know why people have a wedding that lasts a whole day from morning into the late at night, don't we?
That's right, yeah.
But do you necessarily need to have a wedding photographer with you from the start of your day right up to the last part of your day? When obviously the most important part of getting married is
it's a ceremony.
The ceremony part of the day, isn't it?
The actual
because at that part of the day, you have got the most important people together to witness your most amazing occasion. You are getting married.
Yeah.
Wedding photography can now fit that part of the day simply by being with you from the arrivals of guests, the arrivals of the bride. The groom will be there already or waiting. You've got the ceremony itself. You've got the cocktail hour or the champagne reception before people go off and have a meal or sit down or do whatever. That section of the day is the most important part because the most important people will be there at that time.
It's a bit like going back to traditional wedding photography 30, 40 years ago, really, isn't it?
It is rather,
just used to cover that section from the ceremony arrivals to the formal groups. Of course, it was much more formal then, but this seems to be a good way forward, especially during this time when people are trying to save money.
Exactly. I mean, back in those days, in the 80s, if you like, it was expensive, wasn't it? It was rolls of film.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a photographer that could turn up with 35 rolls of film for the whole day because that was expensive, wasn't it? So yeah, as you said, they would turn up. They would take pictures of people at the church or the ceremony, wherever that was taking place. Group photos. Not much candid stuff because it was expensive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Perhaps that wasn't a style back then.
No.
But we were talking just like we are now, and we're kind of realising if there's a requirement, then there should be the ability to provide that service. It doesn't matter who you are. And it is difficult being a wedding photographer because traditionally you make your money in the summer doing all-day weddings. Yeah. It's hard and it's not fair, I don't think, on a couple getting married to want a professional wedding photographer at their wedding for a small section of time, whether it's in December, whether it's in March, or whether it's in August. It should still be something they should be able to have, shouldn't they?
People like to get married in the summer traditionally,
of course,
don't they?
Yeah,
Why not? The weather's usually better, not always, but usually better. You've got longer daylight hours, so you've got more time to party.
Exactly. So on the back of that, going back to what we said before, we feel there's been a bit of a change, and I don't know whether it's been noticed by other wedding photographers, but when there's a change, you have to kind of move with the change. You have to make allowances and changes yourself, don't you? At the moment, it does seem still that most professional wedding photographers will not give anybody a 3-hour coverage on a Saturday in June, July or August sort of thing. They're earmarked for their all-dayers. But why should you as a couple be punished and not be able to have access to a professional wedding photographer when your requirement is just literally, I want you for 3 hours, two to 3 hours, I was going to say, 2 to 3 hours, you're having a full day, you've had to save in certain areas, you want to save a little bit more, you can save on a wedding photographer if they are able to turn up just for a short duration, rather than, I don't know, £1,500 for an all day, £300, £400, £500 for a small section a day.
Yeah.
It saves money, but it also allows a couple to have the most important part with the most important people photographed as mementos for the rest of their days. Now let's face it, when you get your wedding album, you've had an all-day wedding, you get your wedding album back from your photographer, you're looking through it, bridal prep, brilliant, oh look at that was fun. You get to the main part of the day with everybody and that's what you want to see, isn't it? And then you go through that and then you do the speeches and then the rest of it is like, that was fun. Those photos from the main part of the day will be the ones you will always go back to.
And that's going to be the case going forward in time to come. Those are the photos that are going to mean the most to you.
They will stand the test of time because morning prep, it's, you're getting ready.
It's fun time.
Of course it is, And when you're young, you want all the fun, don't you?
Yeah.
But going into the future, And we know this because we've been married, and our photos are literally our ceremony and drinks after.
Yeah.
And a lot of those family aren't with us anymore.
No.
But they're there in photos. You know, party photos, getting ready photos. Yes, they're nice, but are they necessary?
No, those aren't the ones that stand the test of time.
And maybe this is what's happened with the wedding industry in the modern days, is that the unnecessary has become an expectation.
Yeah.
Your donut walls, your photo, but
paraphernalia,
the photo booths, lots of things. And I'm not saying anybody that supplies these, you should be doing it because they give so much to so many people.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is things are changing. With a change, you have to make allowances yourself, don't you, in going forward.
Yeah,
so what we're saying is, if you're looking for a wedding photographer to do your part of your day, you should have that available to you.
You should have that access
regardless
to that,
of who you are, when you're getting married, or for how long your wedding day is going to be.
Yeah, and the beauty with us is because this is what we do full time. This is all we do. We haven't got another job. We can do this on a Saturday in December, on a Saturday in June, in July, or whenever.
That's right. Monday. It's Monday to Sunday for us, isn't it? Again, that's something that might be an issue with some wedding photographers. It isn't their only job.
No,
they have a day job, and this is something else they do. But they like to make the money in the summer months.
And of course, they're going to want to do the full days, then, aren't they?
Of course, and we all want to be out in the summer months, don't we? But we thought we'd do this video because we have had requests. There is a bit of a change. We know you out there planning your weddings. It's horrible because you have to take so much into account. Cost of living is immense at the moment. Anything from food, energy, what you put in your vehicle, petrol, diesel, everything's going up. You still want to get married, and you want to get married for the right reasons. And this is the whole point of it. Again, there has been that change where people are having more weddings that suit themselves as individuals, aren't they? And they are stepping away from the expectation of what a wedding should be. Ask yourselves, why are you getting married? What is the reason you're getting married? Is it to have that whole day that everybody expects you to have? So you're doing it to be compliant with the industry. You're expected to do this, you're expected to have this, you're expected to do this and have that at your wedding. Or are you doing it because or are you planning something that reflects you and your partner, you as people? Is it a whole day? Is it a small day? Is it everybody you've ever had contact with? Is it just your nearest and dearest, your friends and your family? Everybody has different ideas, different plans, different expectations. We're all individuals. As photographers, again, we're all individuals. We have a way of working. It might not be, comparable to somebody else.
No.
And their way of working as a wedding photographer.
We're unique. We're all unique.
We're all unique. That is exactly it.
And you should think about your own uniqueness when planning your wedding. It's about the two of you.
It is. That is exactly it. Again, it might be time to step off of this monster of a wedding industry vehicle and get somewhere where you do exactly what you want to do, what your vision is. The only requirement to get married is to have a legally binding contract, if you like.
Put a ring on it.
Exactly. That's the only requirement. The rest of it is what you want, and you do it how you do it.
Be empowered.
Be yourself. Be yourself. As Cara said, we are able to offer wedding photography throughout the year, anything from all day, 12 hours, to 2 to 3 hours. We do intimate weddings. This is a Ludlow Castle. We're just stood outside. We have a lot of work here for couples that just literally turn up with just a bare minimum and just literally 1 or 2 hours. It's all done.
With a great backdrop.
With a fantastic backdrop, it must be said. A very unique backdrop. We don't want couples to feel they have to miss out because they want to do things a different way. Small is good. Big is brilliant.
Yeah.
Small is good. But don't skimp. And don't feel you can't have a professional at your wedding to take photos of your best moments ever, your best day ever, your best few hours ever.
Short duration wedding photography.
It's a thing.